This is a purpose-driven plan, one that goes beyond sports and speaks to how Montreal sees itself in the decades ahead on the global stage. And I love that. If this vision can be fully realized, Montreal will have one of the great stadiums in the entire world. That might sound ambitious and might sound a little odd for all of you who've been living with the Olympic Stadium since the Olympics. But great cities pursue ambitious projects, and what I saw today was absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, Don, certainly sounds odd, but I'll give you your points when you look at these renderings. Now, that was the commissioner of Major League Soccer, Don Garber. He was in town yesterday making the push for the Quebec government to finish what they started and fully renovate the interior of Olympic Stadium. Garber says once the ongoing roof replacement and planned renovations are completed, Olympic Stadium would become one of the best stadiums in the world for soccer and other major events. Now, the matter is pressing. MLS, Major League Soccer, is moving to a winter schedule, and that means CF Montreal cannot continue to play in Stade Saputo, a facility that Garber bluntly assessed does no longer meets the standards of the league. Let's head over now to Jon Still. He's the play-by-play man for CF Montreal on TSN 690. John, how you doing?
Good morning, Elias. How are you?
I'm well. Let me ask you, reaction to what Don Garber had to say about Olympic Stadium yesterday. Surprise? How did you take the comments we heard from the commissioner?
I would say ambitious. I'd probably say, for a lot of people, for obvious reasons, basically since the Montreal Expos left, that, the Big O has been looked upon as, an eyesore, something that likely, should be torn down. And yet, at the same time, the Quebec government 3 years ago decided to pump a heck of a lot of money into it. And so this feels like a natural evolution. And it does feel like this is going to happen, that the interior of the Big O is going to be renovated at some point. The question is, will it be done in time to keep CF Montreal here, where I think it would be, if it's not done by 2028, next year, Major League Soccer has a shortened season cut in half because they're going to finish in April. And then as of 2028, it is going to be officially the winter schedule, where they'll be going from September until about April or May. If they get it done by then, CF Montreal likely stays. If they don't, I think that spells kind of a disastrous problem for the club.
John, the surprise that I have is that CF Montreal willingly wants to make Olympic Stadium its home. Now, in the past, it seems like every team has tried any reason to get out of the building, whether you're the Alouettes or CF Montreal, only play in the Olympic Stadium when you need to. What has changed here? So the people that run the CF Montreal, the Saputo family, have they changed their tune here on Olympic Stadium?
Well, it's all necessity. Of course, they've changed their tune because there's just going to be no way possible. The renovations that would have to happen at Saputo Stadium, first of all, they'd like to increase the amount of capacity that it could have. And not just that, you would need to winterize the stadium. So you would have to essentially make sure that the pitch is heated. You would have to essentially build entire roof, something that is, I think, one of the kind of joys of Saputo Stadium is that it's this little pitch where you can kind of see everything that's going on there. And I just don't think that I think that is an even more ambitious process than actually renovating something that seems like it's going to be renovated. And so they've absolutely changed their tune. I've called games at the Olympic Stadium. I've seen times where it looks horrific calling games inside there. And yet I also remember years ago, Caleb Porter scoring in the Champions League, in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And the place was filled and it went ballistic, and there's not really many other places in Canada that can kind of support that amount of people. So if they do it right, I do think that the Saputo family is right to want to go to the Olympic Stadium. But that all comes down to a very slim timeline in my mind for being able to get those renovations done.
And the thing that goes through my mind, because I echo what you just said, like when the Olympic Stadium is full, it's hard to, Montrealers are Montrealers. We'll make any venue an incredible venue. But the thing is, I'm just thinking about, okay, regular season MLS game, Montreal against, I don't know, Philadelphia, any team, right? And, well, okay, 15,000 or 21,000 people show up. I don't know if that's a great venue, So I'm just wondering why they don't have those same concerns.
Well, I think the issue is the renovations, or the proposed renovations, is that they're going to essentially take out all of those concrete slabs that used to keep fans really far away from the action. That made it feel, so how can I say this? Cavernous or unintimate, that you felt completely separated from the play. So they want to change that. So that's going to completely change. I believe that Section 100 has already been ripped up. So they're already in the process of kind of doing this. And then they're going to have to put the seats and the fans much closer to the action. And so therefore, even if you have for just regular MLS games, the lower bowl filled up, I think they could still, kind of have a little bit of charm. Well, not charm, because you don't think of the Big O and you think of charm, but as good as it possibly could be. And then the other thing is, the Montreal Alouettes, I've heard from multiple people, are not particularly happy with the way that, their tenancy of McGill Stadium is going. If you got that fully renovated at the Big O, could the Alouettes be looking at that and saying, wow, we could definitely add a couple thousand people into the stadium week after week? Could we move in there? And then it become a multi-purpose stadium for the winter and the summer. You'd be able to have both teams play in there. So I really do think that it just comes down to really poor stadium decisions for all of the other places in the city. And so the Big O is kind of the natural place to migrate to, because the government has already sunk a heck of a lot of money into it.
With Jon Still, he's play-by-play broadcaster for CF Montreal. We're talking about the fate of Olympic Stadium. Jon, you know me. I've been very much against spending money on Olympic Stadium. I will admit that if you come back to me and say, listen, I can give you an Olympic Stadium that has two tenants full-time, Alouettes, Impact, CF Montreal, okay, now I'm listening. But I also have to say, Jon, I get it in the winter. In Montrealers, we need some heat in the winter. I get it. But I can't imagine a summer league like the CFL, June, July, August games where they want to go indoors. I just don't see it. I don't think Montrealers, that was part of the issue with the Expos. Nobody wanted to go indoors fully enclosed June, July, August. So I don't know. Do you really find that plausible? Especially for teams, leagues that do play many games when the weather is nice?
I don't think. Again, it's the same thing with CF Montreal. Is that the agreement between the Alouettes and McGill Stadium is just untenable for the Alouettes. So they want to renovate the stadium. If you've ever been to McGill, you have the concrete slabs essentially that you're sitting in for your seats.
Yeah. There's not even seats. It's benches.
Right. It's a beautiful venue, but again, to renovate it would make it, what we would all want it to be, which is this beautiful, gorgeous view that you can watch football in. And yet they're at loggerheads kind of year after year, the Alouettes and McGill Stadium, for the changes that the Owls want to have come in. And they are just tenants of that stadium. I think a newly renovated Big O. And again, I don't know what could be done potentially for the roof to, I don't want to say open, but at the very least make it so that it could be possible for.
Well, it will allow. It's going to allow sunlight in. So the new roof is it's always on. There's no opening that sucker, but it will allow more light in. Now, Jon, I want to go back to something that you intimated in a previous answer, that if this doesn't get done, that CF Montreal could be looking elsewhere, and by elsewhere I mean elsewhere, other cities. Let's talk a bit about that. Is that really the case? If this doesn't happen, could we lose our soccer team?
Well, I just don't know where else they would play. There's just nowhere else. There's nowhere else that they could do this. You'd either have to wait for the renovations to happen and then play in a third-party stadium for all of your home games, essentially, which would be crazy. And I don't even know where that stadium would exist. Or you'd have to essentially turn Saputo Stadium into where the Buffalo Bills used to play, where you have to be scraping snow off of every seat. And how many people are going to go out there freezing in the middle of, December or January or wherever it is to go watch a football game, a soccer game. So it's just obvious. It's so clear. And that's why I think, it feels far away. It's 2026. We know how long these projects can take. That's why Don Garber is going to the Big O. That's why he's putting on pressure. And look, I don't agree with the commissioner of MLS on much. I think there's times that, he just kind of speaks to hear himself talk a lot of the time. But there is kind of no other alternative other than to have the Big O renovated for CF Montreal for them to really have a future here in the city.
Just to wrap up here quickly, John, I've heard similar concerns about what's happening in Vancouver with their Major League Soccer team. Could we end up in a couple of years from now losing 2 Major League Soccer teams in this country?
Well, I mean, that would be disastrous right after coming off of the World Cup. Our first ever time hosting the World Cup would be a nightmare for soccer fans. But, I mean, it's a possibility. I think the Whitecaps is it seems much more towards the finish line of, do or die, where someone needs to find a way to find a stadium location and stable ownership for the Whitecaps. And Don Garber made it very clear that he doesn't think it's not the same kind of hang up here in Montreal as it is out in Vancouver with, he believes local investment and the fact that they've wanted to renovate BC Place for a long time. That's never happened. And so they were trying to find some soccer specific stadium. I do think that it is possible, although I am cautiously optimistic that the Quebec government is going to get this done and renovate the Big O on time to save CF Montreal.
One difference here is that the Quebec government, they'll give away the lease for Olympic Stadium because they so desperately want a tenant. Whereas right. I think in Vancouver the problem is the government wants too much money. Right. John, listen, you're great. Thanks for coming on this morning. Appreciate you breaking it down.
Thank you, Elias.
Jon Still, play-by-play broadcaster for CF Montreal on TSN 690. You can also catch him on Melnick in the afternoon.
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Brian Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada. The station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required. Just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
or the free iHeartRadio app.